Everyone, it's your King of Expatriates, Zan Man, Shane Sabunia here. Just got done watching Impact Wrestling's Bash at the Beach, Impact Plus special event. I was kind of expecting it to be more of a pay-per-view quality show than it ended up being. This is only 2 days, of course, before their Slammiversary event, which is taking place in Dallas. And this one was at the San Antonio at the Freetail Brewery. In conjunction with RCW, which is, I believe, like Retail Championship Wrestling or something like that. And in this case, they only had a couple of matches involving RCW talent. The rest of it was all Impact. The card was looked like a pay-per-view quality card, looking at everything that was involved in it, including Rosemary taking on Su Yung. It was also Brian Cage scheduled to defend his Impact Championship against Moose. An Extreme Rules match between RVD and Sami Callihan. The World Tag Team title is being defended by LAX against the North. And there was also Jordynne Grace taking on Jessica Havoc. And a triple threat match between Tessa Blanchard, Willie Mack, and Rich Swann, taking on the team composed of OVE members Jake Christ, Dave Christ, and Mad Mountain Fulton. So that really, when you take those matches into consideration, that is a pay-per-view quality card, a card that, on paper at least, would rival what we're going to see on Sunday at Slammiversary. And the card got off to an interesting start because there was a couple of unannounced matches and a couple of unannounced events that took place that kind of changed the course of the evening. The first thing that happened was we saw the Rascals in a 6-man tag against 3 members of the RCW side. I don't recall their names. It wasn't a bad match. It was a decent match. They had a decent showing there. Had some nice triple team moves on both sides. And as you would expect, the top contenders for the tag team titles, the Rascals, were able to pull off a victory with basically like a spiral tap done by Desmond Xavier in getting the victory after a Swanton Bomb by my boy Zachary Wentz. Then they went to an interview, a promo in the middle of the ring, with reigning Impact World Heavyweight Champion Brian Cage, who of course until recently has been on the shelf after Rebellion when he won the championship from Johnny Impact and was then attacked by Michael Elgin, who has been hospitalizing people. That's been his gimmick, is that he's going to hospitalize people and win that championship from Brian Cage. Well, Cage was out there talking about his return, how he is the machine and he can't really be broken, and that while Michael Elgin might be unbreakable, he can be beaten. And then his opponent for the evening, Moose, came out there to interrupt, saying that he was the real star of Impact, that he is Mr. Impact, and that he is going to be the next Impact World Champion. That brought Elgin out to attack Cage from behind, and Elgin and Moose were stomping Cage, but Elgin took it too far, kept attacking Cage, hit him with a couple power bombs, kept attacking him. When they were fighting, the officials and the referees would pull him off, get him away. He just kept coming, and he ended up, quote unquote, hospitalizing Brian Cage as he was sent to a medical facility, later called a hospital, and that in effect canceled one of the supposed main events of the evening, that had also been changed apparently to a non-title match before that, because Don Callis was talking about how if Moose got the victory, he would then be the number 1 contender for the championship instead of being the champion. But it ended up that because Cage was sent to the hospital, that match had to be called off, and Moose was added into Michael Elgin's match, which was scheduled to be against Eddie Edwards. So the world title match was scrapped for a non-title match, which was then also scrapped, and the match between Eddie Edwards and Michael Elgin was rescheduled to be a triple threat match including Moose. Next up, we had Falaba, who is actually the RCW champion, and has apparently dropped 113 pounds, although that seems like a ton of pounds to, well, not a literal ton, that came out interestingly and wrong, but that was, it seems like that's more pounds than what he actually has dropped from what I can tell. It's not been that long since I've seen him in the ring, and 113 pounds seems to a lot to have dropped in that time frame. He does definitely look more svelte. I would say he's probably dropped at least 50 pounds, but dropping 113 pounds in like 9 or 10 months seems like quite a bit. And anyway, he was defending his championship against adorable Anthony Andrews, who's anything but adorable. And it was pretty much just your standard match, nothing to write home about, not really a squash, but a decent showing by Andrews. And Falaba was able to win with his Fala Splash from the Fala Bomb, I think they call it, from the second rope. No big deal, but he holds on to his championship that I doubt more than 20 people knew he actually held. The next up, I believe, was the the six-man tag. Six-person tag, actually, because Tessa Blanchard was in there. And that was a hard-fought battle between Tessa Blanchard, Willie Mack, and the unbelievably annoying, overrated, under-talented Rich Swann. And they were taking on the OVE team of the Christs and Mad Mountain Fulton. And this match did really what it should have been doing, considering the big match coming up for her at Slammiversary against Sami Callihan. It basically was a showcase for the great Tessa Blanchard, as she was able to get the pin on Dave Christ in this match after pinning Jake Christ a couple of impacts ago. And so now she is going in with the momentum for the event. Mad Mountain Fulton had his spots. Willie Mack had his spots. Tessa also had a couple of great spots against Mad Mountain Fulton, including a spot where she did the Magnum from the top rope. He caught her, but then the Flippy Dippy Witch Swan hit a springboard kick, kicking Fulton down into the Magnum, and then she was able to take down Mad Mountain Fulton with just a little bit of an assist from Swan. So again, a great showcase for Tessa Blanchard. Pretty good match all around. I definitely would recommend taking a look at this one if you get a chance on Impact Plus. I'm trying to think what match was up next. I believe it was the Eddie Edwards versus... Oh no, I'm sorry. I missed a match in there. Jordan Grace took on Jessica Havoc in a match that was going pretty well. It was a pretty decent women's match for about 5 to 6 minutes. And Grace was getting the better of Havoc, the much larger Havoc, I might add, when Su Yung interfered and Jordan Grace won the match by disqualification. This brought Rosemary out to make the save on her former foe, Jordan Grace, because she just hates the other two monsters on the other side of the ring more. And what was supposed to be two separate women's singles matches turned into a women's tag match, as Rosemary made the challenge, and she and Jordan Grace took on Su Yung and Jessica Havoc. And we got a pretty decent women's tag match there. And what happened at the end was that Su Yung went for her panic switch. She missed it. Rosemary hit the spear, pinned her in the middle of the ring, and that sets up what's going to go down at Slammiversary, which is a Monsters Ball match with Jessica Havoc, Su Yung, and Rosemary, the 3 of the 4 women in this match, challenging Taya Valkyrie for the Women's Knockout Championship in that Monsters Ball match at Slammiversary. Now, I'm hoping it's an actual Monsters Ball match. For those of you who are not in the loop with what Monsters Ball used to be, the whole conceit of it was that these individuals were placed into cells the night before, and obviously kayfabe, were left to their own devices for 24 hours, locked in a dark cell with water and maybe a little bit of food. I can't remember if there was food involved or not. But basically, they came out because they've been in that dark room for 24 hours. They were uncaged animals ready to rip each other apart. Since then, the concept has evolved into just being basically a regular hardcore match. And they have not really talked up what the Monsters Ball is going to be this year, so I'm thinking that's probably going to be the same thing. But that really is what a Monsters Ball was supposed to be, and what distinguished it from just a regular hardcore match is that these characters who might have already been crazed in their own right were even more crazed because of the lack of sunlight and human contact and everything like that for 24 hours. They really should bring that back at some point. I don't know if it will be this Sunday, but I am looking forward to that match for sure. We also had the Eddie Edwards Michael Elgin match that turned into a triple threat with Moose, and that was a pretty decent showing as well. It wasn't a great match, but it was pretty good, and because of the triple threat rules, low blows, Eddie Edwards' use of the Kenny 2.0, which is his Singapore cane for those who don't know, was all legal. And it ended up with Michael Elgin hitting a pop-up power bomb, followed by the turnbuckle bomb, followed by the Elgin bomb, in order to get the victory in this one. Moose, who was not originally scheduled to be in the match, ended up being left out of the decision, and he still has his match coming up at Slammiversary against Mr. Monday Night Rob Van Dam. Meanwhile, Elgin, of course, will be challenging for the Impact World Championship against Brian Cage, the man he sent to the hospital again tonight. And Eddie Edwards has his own challenge as he will be facing Killer Cross in a first blood match. Again, that's Sunday night in Dallas at Slammiversary. Next up was the World Tag Team title match. Interesting things have been going on in the tag division I believe it was at the Code Red event. It was the North taking on two members of the Rascals. I believe it was Zachary Wentz and Desmond Xavier, the same two men who will be challenging for the tag team titles on Sunday night. And the North were able to get the victory over Dez and Wentz in that match. It wasn't exactly a squash match, but it was a dominant performance by the North. Then, less than a month later, the same two men had a match against LAX and tore the house down on Impact. However, their tag team partner, the third member of the Rascals, Trey Miguel, who was on the outside, jumped in and got the pinfall. LAX looked to have lost their tag team championships, but of course the illegal man had gotten the pinfall, so the decision was reversed. And they basically demanded a rematch from LAX. LAX beat them down and then said, sure, you could have your rematch at Slammiversary. Meanwhile, the North had already secured a tag team championship shot tonight. And they also defeated Rob Van Dam and Sabu on an episode of Impact, so they had some good momentum coming in. They also, I believe, this past week on Impact had also defeated the Dieters. They were hot coming in, and they had a strong match against LAX, winning the championships tonight with a belt shot to the head of Santana and getting the pin in the middle of the ring. So, we have new World Tag Team Champions 2 nights before Slammiversary. And it seemed to me, after that victory, that meant that the tag team title match at Slammiversary was now going to be a triple threat tag team title match, with the North defending their titles against both LAX and the team of the Rascals, Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz. And that was actually announced to be the case. So the North are the new World Tag Team Champions for Impact, defeating LAX ending their just over 2-month reign with the titles, as they had won them back in a Full Metal Mayhem match from from the Lucha Bros at Rebellion. And so now the North will defend those titles against both LAX and the Rascals, and I would look for them to probably retain the titles. The interesting thing is that LAX and the Rascals probably will not be done with each other after that, so then where do the North go for their next tag team champions? Challengers. Interesting stuff going on with the tag division. There are about 5 teams in the division right now, maybe actually 6. There's the Christs, there's the North, there's the Rascals, LAX, the Dieters, and the Desi Hit Squad. Of course, Desi Hit Squad and the Dieters seem to be involved with each other. The Christs and the North are both kind of heels, so seeing them face each other would be weird, but also, the Rascals and LAX are still both kind of faces, so it's an interesting situation. Maybe the Chris will end up being the next tag team challengers for the North after this, or maybe the Rascals or LAX will come out with that situation. Although, like I said, I think the LAX and the Rascals are still going to be involved in the program with each other. Interesting, fun stuff going on there, and we have a good, strong tag team division heating up here on Impact Wrestling. The main event turned out not to be the Extreme Rules match that was apparently originally advertised, but it was Rob Van Dam taking on Sami Callihan. Again, not a bad match, but not a great match either. And this ended up being just a spot for Callihan was about to lose. Down comes Jake Christ, the mini draw to interfere for him, hold Rob Van Dam's leg, and that brought Tessa Blanchard out to, Van Dam kicked him down. Callihan pulled Van Dam off the top rope, hit Luis Figoli driver on him, and he couldn't get the victory, so Chris was going to hand him a chair. Tessa Blanchard came down to stop that from happening. Shenanigans ensued. Van Dam hit the 5-star frog splash on the chair on top of Callihan. So even though it really wasn't an Extreme Rules match, he used an Extreme Rules move to win the match. As he was able to crawl over, get the pin on Callihan. And Tessa Blanchard, just like she did earlier in the night with her showcase, this time has cost Sami Callihan his match against Rob Van Dam, again setting up more towards their match at Slammiversary. What looked to me coming in to be a pay-per-view quality show ended up being a little better than a house show. Maybe an in-your-house type event where the matches weren't as strong as you would get on a high-level pay-per-view, but weren't bad. Maybe Clash of the Champions level if you look at the old WCW days. One problem with this show was that neither the ring nor the crowd were mic'd well, so you could kind of hear people shouting in the crowd every so often during matches, but you couldn't really hear them applauding. You couldn't hear any kind of a roar going on, any kind of a real ruckus. And then you couldn't really hear any of the sounds in the ring because it just wasn't mic'd well, if it was mic'd at all. That did detract a little bit from the presentation, but still not a bad show to watch. Some good wrestling, some decent performances, and interesting turn of events with Blanchard having the showcase triple threat match, with the World Tag Team titles changing hands, and with that triple threat match with Edwards versus Elgin versus Moose. I definitely would recommend at least watching those 3 matches. It's only a 2.5 hour show, so it's not going to be taking a lot out of your time just to watch the whole thing either. But I wouldn't necessarily say that the whole thing is necessarily worth a watch. Just probably those 3 things. And if you're a big Rascals fan like myself and my partner Jeff are, maybe watching that match wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for you either. Just some quick predictions, I guess, for Slammiversary coming up. Let me just pull up my handy dandy phone here and just make sure I get the whole card. Well, I don't know where I put the thing. So let me just think off the top of my head here. So we have Eddie Edwards taking on Moose, or no, Eddie Edwards taking on Killer Cross in that first blood match. Cross has been trying to bring out the Beast in Eddie Edwards. So the question is, will the Beast in Eddie Edwards be brought out more by defeating Killer Cross and making him bleed, or by Cross making Edwards bleed and then driving him crazy afterwards? My money is on the latter, and so I'm going to say that Killer Cross is going to get the victory here over Eddie Edwards. Rich Swann will be defending the X Division title against Johnny Impact, and I've already said I think Rich Swann is overrated, under-talented, and annoying, so I'm really hoping that Johnny Impact pulls off the victory here, and that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to pick Johnny Impact as being the new X Division champion. The North, I've already said, I believe will hold on to their tag team titles against both LAX and the Rascals, although, I would not mind whatsoever seeing Wentz and Dez leave with those tag team titles. I also like, I like all three teams in here, but I think that really, what we're looking at here is that it's the North's time to be tag team champions, and I look to see them hold on to those tag team titles on Sunday night in what should be an excellent triple threat match, although I would prefer a straight tag team match. I do realize the North need to get on the card. It is exciting to have new tag team champions, but I much prefer standard one-on-one matches, especially when it comes to tag team wrestling. Tessa Blanchard taking on Sami Callihan. Well, Blanchard has had the upper hand at every turn here, and Sami Callihan is the reigning Impact Wrestling Wrestler of the Year. Also, one of my favorite professional wrestlers right now. These actually probably are my favorite wrestler and my favorite women's wrestler facing each other here in this match. At least on Impact Wrestling, my favorite male wrestler, my favorite female wrestler. So there's really no way for me to lose in this one, but I would be very surprised if Sami Callihan actually does the job to Tessa Blanchard. I think Blanchard just having a competitive match with Sami Callihan proves her point, and I think that's really what this is all about. So I would look for Sami Callihan to walk away with the victory there. Moose taking on Rob Van Dam. Well, Rob Van Dam is an ECW original, of course, and he's had some strong showings at Impact, including tonight winning against Sami Callihan. However, Moose is a future world champion, and I think that the best money here is for him to get the rub by going over Rob Van Dam at Slammiversary, setting himself up for a future championship match. He now has heat with both Elgin and Brian Cage, so whoever ends up leaving with the championship that night, Moose could easily be the top contender for that championship. So Moose to go over Rob Van Dam in what should be a fun match. I'm trying to think if I'm leaving something out here, so I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head because, like I said, I'm not finding my phone at the moment. Let me just pull up the card real quick on my computer to make sure I'm not missing something, because the only other match I can think of off the top of my head is, of course, Brian Cage defending that championship against Michael Elgin. So let's see, Impact, Slammiversary, 2019 card. I believe there is one more match on there that I'm not thinking of, so I'm just pulling that up right now to see what we could possibly, what else could possibly be happening. And I found a preview on Last Word on ProWrestling.com. So let's see what they are saying, what matches they have listed here. Yeah, Cage versus Elgin, Tessa Blanchard versus Sami Callihan, Swan versus... Oh yeah, of course, the Monsters Ball match I already mentioned. That's the one that I forgot to talk about here. So the other match left on the card, the Monsters Ball match between Su Yung, Rosemary, Jessica Havoc, and the current reigning champion Taya Valkyrie. This match is very close to call. I would say Jessica Havoc is probably out of the running just because she just returned and she needs some more time to be built up before winning that championship. So that leaves it between Su Yung, Rosemary, and Taya Valkyrie. I wouldn't be surprised if the feud between Taya Valkyrie and Su Yung, they can kind of cancel each other out, and somehow Taya Valkyrie gets the pinfall over Jessica Havoc. She still owes Rosemary a one-on-one match as a result of Rosemary saving her from Su Yung and Jessica Havoc a couple of times. So I would look for Taya Valkyrie to leave here, holding on to her tag team, to her women's knockout championship, and defending the title down the road against Rosemary. So that brings us to Brian Cage defending the championship against Michael Elgin. Elgin has been reigning terror on the entire Impact roster. Even those who look like might be his allies, such as Johnny Impact and Moose, he has pissed off or attacked in some way or another. He is a loner who doesn't care about anybody or anything. Brian Cage will be defending his title for the very first time, and has been, even though he's a machine, has been put on the shelf by Michael Elgin a couple of times now. This match is pretty close to call, in my opinion, but I think with the current ongoing storyline, the best move would be to have Elgin leave with the championship. Elgin is a former Ring of Honor World Champion, former IWGP Intercontinental Champion, and here, since he's been wreaking havoc on the entire promotion, it would make sense for him to win the championship here, and then Cage maybe be built back up to win the title back from him at Bound for Glory. Of course, you know, it's tough for a guy to lose his championship in his very first, at least televised defense, but if it fits the story better, it fits the story better. And here, I think Michael Elgin losing his first championship match hurts his credibility in a way that, at a time when he is being built up as being a unbreakable, unstoppable force of nature. So I think the best move here, and the way that I would book it, so I'm going to go ahead and predict it, is Michael Elgin leaving with the World Championship and being your new IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Excuse me, Impact World Heavyweight Champion. So, Michael Elgin to win the championship, Johnny Impact to win the championship, the North to retain their championship, and Taya Valkyrie to retain her championship. And I think that's all I've got for tonight for you. Make sure you stay tuned to the other stuff that Kingdom of Honor will have for you, including on Monday when we talk about probably the cards this weekend, along with All Elite Wrestling's Fighter Fest, which we did not get to last week. Check me out at ZanmanLOP. Check Jeff out at Regi Co-op. Go to Kingdom of Honor go to Facebook.com/Kingdom of Honor for all of the latest Kingdom of Honor news. You can also hashtag Kingdom of Honor if you want to talk to us on Twitter as well. And you can email us at kingdomofhonor123@gmail.com. This is your boy, the expatriate, Shane Sabunia, Zanman, signing off. You have a great night and a great weekend, and I will talk at you on Monday.